Welcome to Asia Live. Today, from our bureau, in fact, in Beijing, Shannon Van Sant is joining us from there. Firstly, Shannon, let's talk about this smog in China, can we? I mean, we've been seeing some incredible images about just how bad it's got there once again. Shannon, can you hear me? I was just saying, have you seen, we've been seeing some incredible images about how bad the smog has got there.
Yes, that's right. Harbin, it's a city of 11 million people, was almost shut down yesterday because of high pollution levels there. The air quality index reached almost 1,000. The World Health Organization recommends a daily level of 20 for the air quality index. Hopefully that puts things in perspective. It's making the headlines here today across China, in the local newspapers, also in the English language state-run China Daily as well. And the authorities there had to shut down schools, highways, and public transit systems. And it really grounds a fairly large city, a center of economic activity in China, to a halt yesterday.
OK, we'll continue to follow that story, of course. Now, also, Shannon, a UN hearing revealing conflicting views of China's human rights record there.
That's right. There's a hearing today at the United Nations in Geneva on China's human rights record. China, of course, released a statement yesterday saying that it's improving on human rights, and also listed economic development as a human right here that China has improved upon. Of course, the United Nations and some member states of the United Nations have a different perspective on China's human rights, particularly considering that China is in the midst of a crackdown on freedom of speech and activism across the country. 16 activists have been arrested since Xi Jinping took power last spring. One of those was Xu Zhiyong, a very prominent lawyer. A number of other prominent lawyers and activists have been arrested as well. So it's going to be a contentious issue today in the United Nations, as, of course, China defends its human rights record, and other members of the United Nations will criticize it.
Now, more alleged discrimination. This time, though, it's from HIV patients there.
That's right. AIDS cases here are sharply rising, particularly amongst the gay male community here. There have been almost 20,000 deaths from AIDS so far this year. And discrimination here is still a very real problem, as you'll see in this report.
Banners, flags, and bikes. It is best to avoid dramatic protests to help AIDS victims in China. Last Sunday, an NGO organized a scavenger hunt in the streets of Beijing. The money collected here will go to children whose parents have died of AIDS. There are only 30 participants today, but it's already a sign of progress.
Today, the work done by our NGO received the approval of the Beijing Communist Youth League, which we didn't have before. It's really encouraging. In society in general, normal people have started to pay more attention to AIDS. They're more knowledgeable than before.
Chinese may have more knowledge of the disease, but carriers like 23-year-old Liu Shi still face discrimination. He describes a new proposal by the Chinese government impacting people like him.
If the draft from the Commerce Bureau becomes law, HIV carriers like me won't be able to enter places like those public baths behind me.
Public baths and spas could soon display signs prohibiting HIV carriers. There is no risk of transmission in these places, but in an online survey, 70% of Chinese approved this proposal. For Liu Shi, it's the latest injustice HIV carriers face in China.
Things are already pretty bad for people with HIV. They cannot be teachers at school. They cannot be public servants. They are discriminated against. Yet their illness doesn't affect their work in any way.
And even those who should know the most about HIV, doctors, sometimes seem ignorant. We had to meet Li Hu outside of this Beijing hospital, which refused our cameras. Li Hu also has AIDS and can get treatment here for recurrent allergies, but many HIV patients aren't so lucky.
If we have an illness which has nothing to do with AIDS, for example, any kind of surgery, we are often refused by the normal hospitals. Without support from elsewhere, it's almost 100% sure that you won't even be seen by a doctor.
The only consolation for patients is increased coverage of medical care by the government. Urgent action is needed in China. Last year, the number of AIDS-related deaths increased by more than 8%, according to government statistics.
So Shannon, watching that report there, I mean, are there any grounds for the discrimination that we saw there?
Yeah, well, as you can see, it's a very big problem here, and it's due to lack of education across the country, both in the urban and the rural areas, basic sex education, and also education on sexually transmitted diseases. And that's probably the main cause of the rise in AIDS-related cases here. And part of that lack of education also leads to greater amount of discrimination and prejudice and misconceptions as to how AIDS is contracted.
Shannon, thanks very much. That's Shannon Van Sant, our correspondent, joining us there from Beijing. That was today's Asia Live. Well, that's all from me for this hour of Live from Paris. I'm going to have another edition, of course, in an hour's time. Next, though, Aurore Dupree is going to be with you. She'll be talking to our correspondent in Rio as Brazil agrees to sell its massive oil field for $400 billion. Now, have they been shortchanged? That's with Aurore after the break here on France 24.